I didn't know.
All right, guys, come on, find a seat. We want to hear as much as we can from Mr. Leon. As much as we can, I promise you, I'll be taking notes as well. All right, so investing is not a team, it is not a solo thing, okay? Investing is a team sport. Honestly, I find that those who do it themselves go so little and they hinder themselves so much. And by what I mean by that is your team can be many things. One of them is mentors. I've had plenty of mentors, and mentors look like many things. But, for example, I think I met Adam, raise your hand, Adam Johnson, Mr. Sippy, no, Adam Big Sip, I forget, I get y'all mixed up, Adam Big Sip Johnson, whatever, Mississippi boys, because I had a Mississippi lead, and I was like, I'm Louisiana, I don't know what to do with this, so I called the first, SEO for the website for We Buy Houses Mississippi, and a few years ago, Adam, do you remember that phone call? When I called you, I just called the We Buy Houses Mississippi.
Yep, I was in the car in Pearl River County. You had a mobile home and 2 acres just inside Hancock County, but it was a Picayune address.
Yep. You remember the date? He's really good with this stuff.
That would have been,
It's like,
early 18, I think.
I'm in my head being like, oh no. He does that freakishly, and he'll say, this is the address. Do you know the address?
No, because I never would look at it.
No, I remember the situation. The guy wasn't a good fit. But I said, hey, I don't care. I need a good strategic relationship in Mississippi. Not long after we got to meet, so Adam and his business partner Brent, his father, Mr. Leon, they run a REIA up in the Hattiesburg area. Anyway, long story short, I get talking to him. We're in exchanging, REIA owner to REIA owner, people down in the south dealing with crazy people trying to sell 2 trailers on a piece of land that's not quite Burlington, Picayune and whatever. I remember they invited us to the crawfish boil at your house. I think that was the first time I met you in person. And the first time I got there, I feel like I was the first one there and the last one there, because I want to say I was there 12 hours, because it was in Wiggins, and I had to go to the end of the driveway to get service. But I'm sitting there, and Mr. Leon, 50 acres? You got 50 acres over there?
Well, 65 now.
Now, because he drove me around on his John Deere Gator, and he goes, that's one of my properties, and it's like everywhere the sun hit, you know what I mean? Like, and he's got, anyway, so I remember meeting you that day. Someone just heard, I'll be teaching you guys about this deal that I've been working on for a while, as we're starting to get some closure on it. I think I brought that file up. I was like, we sat down at the end of the day, he said, hey, let's talk real estate. And I said, really? Because I got a file on the truck, I go pull. And he said, yeah. So I go get the file, I'm like, I've got this deal. What do you think about this? And I think, seriously, I was thinking the last one, we were all sitting out in front, and you invited me the next day to watch you do a lease up. And so he had a Mima cottage right next to his property. So anyone know what a Mima cottage is? Post-Katrina people, okay. And we sit across this, 18-year-old to 21-year-old boy?
Look, he has been the best tenant.
He has been the best tenant?
Well, that upsets me because I'm pretty sure that was the one I moved out from.
Yes, it was the Mima cottage you lived in. So we're sitting there, and it's an hour long. For an hour, I get to watch Mr. Leon go through his, how many page lease?
I don't know, I forget, 16, 18, 19.
Yeah, 16 to 19, whatever pages. And he's going, paragraph by paragraph. Son, you understand what I'm talking about here? And little boy, yes sir, real good, polite boy. And at the very end, he goes, son, you got any questions? This is serious business here. I want you to treat that property right. He goes, I just got one question, sir. He said, my girlfriend told me that it's pink. I'm colorblind. Can I paint it? He hasn't painted. He said, well, son, if you're a good enough tenant, I'll even buy and you're good at painting, I'll even buy the paint, Because the little boy didn't know, he was kind of like, he didn't know that he was buying a pink house to live in. And I mean, I'm telling you, all that had something in between his teeth. You know what I mean? Like, this dude was like as country as could be. And, but sitting there that hour was, I was just sitting there like soaking it all in. Even with the background in property management, it was a master class happening in front of me. And what I mean by that is you don't often get to see that practical of an implication there. So, and it was an hour and a half of lease up. And if, first of all, if you're not taking that long with your tenants, there's a lesson there. Second of all is, you've been in the industry for 30, 40, maybe 40 to 50?
Yeah.
Because you're 51 years old, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to date you here. He has done, he is the king of creative financing. Many of you guys know him from teaching on the creative finance side. But he is a buy and hold guy. Don't get me wrong. You've done just about everything under the sun when it comes to, you've done some new builds. You've obviously flipped. His son Adam and business partner Brent, they do Mississippi home buyers, so they do a ton of wholesaling. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing tonight. Without further ado, I'll brush up. But we've got 2 books to give away, so throughout, help me remember. If not, I'll take the slide at the end. But I want to hear everything you have to say. We're going to hold the questions for the end, because honestly, you want to hear him speak. So let's hold the questions toward the end, because he's going to give as much information as he can, and at the end we're going to open up some information, some Q&A. So without further ado, Mr. Leon Johnson.
You really need to give her a hand. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, guys.
She runs an incredible REIA here, and I'm impressed every time I come down to see all these folks here, and a lot of quality people that I see over and over again. I see new people all the time, and it's all about education and networking. And one thing about her, she doesn't spare expenses on going to seminars and continuing her education. And we've been to several together.
If he says go, I think you told me one time within a week I booked a trip and a hotel to Atlanta, and my brain still hurts from that seminar. It was so good. But if he says go, there's some people in my life that, you know, if they say, hey, this house is pink, I'm going to say, yes, sir, it's pink. You know, because at the end of the day, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, this guy has done 500 plus transactions easily. I know you're not probably going to say the number, but like, I know you've done a good bit. And if I can get even an ounce of what he's done and accomplish some of that, I'd count myself lucky. And so when he says go learn, and he's sitting right there next to me taking notes, I'm like, to a seminar that you've been to, what box, how many times?
That one only one time.
Okay.
But Pete,
Okay, well, so...
25 years, you know.
Well, yeah, so you've been listening to Pete for 25 years, and then we were just at that one in October. How many times have you been to that one?
I think that was the 4th time to that one.
Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, learned so much from you in that regards.
And if I recommend something, I'm not going to recommend something that you won't. You get there, every time I go, I might have gone the 5th time to one of these seminars, and I'm sitting there in an hour, and I say, dang, you know, so-and-so needs to be here. So-and-so needs to be here. I wish Adam would have come to this one or whatever, but of course he's been to dozens of them. Let me ask you this, how many of you in here, raise your hand if you have a property you're holding right now and renting out? Okay, look around. That's a pretty good many in the room. That's pretty good. Now, how many of you, those are single-family houses? Okay, I like that. I'm going to get along real well with you. How many multifamily, a duplex or more? Quite a few. Okay. All right, now, how many of you, they all look around, have multifamily and single-family houses? Raise your hand. These are smart guys right here. Well, I should say experienced guys. They've got experience, because there's something to be said about multifamily versus a house, a single-family house. And what I'm going to talk about here in the next, 50 minutes or so is about a 3-day subject, a 3 8-hour day subject, okay? So I'm going to try to get through it, and I'm going to talk more about an attitude that you have to have and a way of thinking about it, maybe more than the details, because the details, we can, like I said, we can go on for 3 days, but I am going to throw you out some interesting thoughts and things to think about that you might want to incorporate. And before I forget, I want you to write down a name, Dave Tilney, Tilney. Dave's 72, I believe, and he's getting to the point where if you can get anything that he does, you better get it. And it's called Hassle-Free Property Management.
Is that seminar this weekend, the
I think
webinar?
there's one going on this weekend, or maybe it was last weekend, I'm not sure.
It already happened.
It's already happened, okay.
Mr. Leon, repeat that a little louder.
Dave
Sorry.
Tilney, Tilney, Hassle-Free Property Management.
Thank
Dave and I learned from the same guy. I was actually a little ahead of Dave in learning what he learned. And he was so good at it that the guy who taught us quit teaching it and said, Dave, you're gonna teach it from now on. I'm gonna let you teach it. And he has, and it's worth, Courtney sat through it. I think you did the virtual, didn't you?
It's not in person. Well, I've been waiting for the in person for I feel like last year he didn't do it, or something like, no, last year it was the top conference on my list last year, and it was only virtual.
Yeah.
I was so bummed but I still did the virtual.
Yeah,
I mean,
and if you get a chance to do the virtual, you should do it because you get the paperwork and the workbooks and all that. But let me back up just a little bit, and I say this over and over and over all the time. You can have two houses on the same street, same neighborhood, exactly the same, built same quality, same school, same everything. One could be a great investment, and the other one not. What's the difference?
Tenant.
No, I'm going to disagree with you for a minute.
Terms.
Because you can put a great tenant in either one of them.
Terms. Landlord management. Terms.
Who said it? Yeah, there we go. Financing. If you don't get the right kind of financing on something, one of those houses, you might have a 3 or 5 year balloon. You might be paying payments way more than the rent that it will command. Okay?
it's even more true now with the financing and the applications of the financing right now.
Yeah. So if you can get something stretched out long term with low rates, I like seller financing. I mean, but you can even get, if you've got the right credentials right now and the right W-2 income and that sort of thing, you can go get some good long-term financing, and you can do that. And if you can, let me say this: you don't ever buy anything that your tenants can't afford. Okay? Don't ever buy anything your tenants can't afford. I'm telling you, that's gold right there.
No, but seriously, he told me that and I walked away from a deal. An $8,500 commercial property. Remember when I asked you about this? I had a commercial property under contract for $8,500. Single standing building. And I walked away from it because I knew it was going to be hard to find a tenant. Don't ask, but it was Bugalooza.
Yeah. And you know what happens is, we call them alligators. If they're costing you money, they eat every month. You don't want an alligator, okay?
Hey, let me throw in one thing real quick. For those of you that have never heard him speak, he's gonna throw in a lot of little stuff like that, that if you're not paying attention, it'll just fly right by you. But that's some of the most golden nuggets.
Yep.
Is the little things that he'll throw out there, just like that. Don't buy anything that your tenants can't afford. That will save you more headache and time and energy and effort and long-term money than just about anything else you go around here to buy.
And if your tenants can't afford a balloon in 3 or 5 years, don't buy it. Okay? All right? Another thing you want to consider is, and you want to write this down, the kind of property it is attracts the kind of tenants that you're going to get. That's true. Okay? Does that make sense? Are you going to get somebody that's a high-income W-2 person going to come rent a low-end mobile home? They're not. Who's going to come rent a low-end mobile home? If you've got a house in a war zone, you're going to get a minister to come live over there when there's shots going off every night down the street or next door?
Maybe, but it's got to be a church you own.
Yeah, what kind of people are going to live? What kind of person is that going to attract? Somebody that likes being in a war zone.
Can you explain what a war zone is?
Sounds like Chicago.
Anybody don't know what a war zone is? It's a neighborhood where there's gunfire going off and drug deals
Or
going
a
down.
way that we explain it is, Paul's wife does our property management. If Paul, how tall is Charlene? 4. if we're afraid to send her to collect rent, we're not gonna do it.
There you go.
Like by herself, I mean.
There you go. So, but understand this, you can buy those kind of properties cheaper. You can probably get good long-term owner financing on them. And if you don't mind carrying a baseball bat with you and a Uzi or something, whatever you collect rent, you can get some pretty high cash flow on that. We know several folks that likes those kind of properties, and man, they don't care. They're going there with a baseball bat and run them out. And see, that's not for me. And so the kind of property that you choose to own and hold long term will attract a certain kind of tenant. And what you've got to decide is, do I want to attract, what kind of tenant do I want to attract? And let me just tell you this about multifamily. I own multifamily. I hate multifamily. Yes, you can make a lot of money at it. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm saying, but the tenants in an apartment are needy. They want services. The toilets, they stop the toilet up themselves because they're drunk at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning. And 2:30, they're calling somebody to come unstop the toilet for them. Okay? I don't like that. I'm lazy, and I'm getting lazier the older I get. I like hassle-free. Okay? So what do I choose? I choose single-family houses in good neighborhoods. Average to good neighborhoods, okay? And I rent them to average tenants with average incomes. And when you do enough of that, you can have a superb, awesome income that comes in every month, rent to salt-of-the-earth kind of people. And the kind of properties you choose, I like single-family houses, great neighborhoods, good schools, close to a Walmart, close to churches. And I know one guy that won't buy anything that's over like 3 or 4 miles from a Walmart. You know, that's a big deal. So I like to, if you'll go look on MLS, any of these, the realtors in here, they can tell you what the median price home is in a given area. Okay, am I right? You guys have access to that. I like houses just down under that. Okay? Because in good times, some of these people are going to be moving up, and they get in there. Times get hard, all these people that are higher income that's getting foreclosed on and stuff, and they move down, that's a good area to move to. So it's a good area of properties to own is just under medium income in a great area. So you attract salt of the earth, great people. And that right there, he said something earlier, tenants, he said the word tenants. I think that your tenants are more valuable than the property itself. Okay? The tenants are more valuable than the property. You got to treat them good and love on them. But you got to be firm. Okay? And my longest was 23 years. And they got a divorce. Or they would still be there today. And I sold that house. It was in 409 Stonewood Court in Blue Springs, Missouri. And I sold that house, 12 or 14 years ago or something like that. And but they were there 23 years. I think our longest one now, I think for the last 4 years I've been saying he was there 14 years. So I need to pull the rental agreement and see how long he's been there. But been there a long time. We have a bunch of them 4, 5, and 6 years. And, you know, I mean, you get to know them over a long period of time. I mean, you don't have to be real friendly with them. But you got to treat them good. So that's kind of the attitude. Now, let's back up a little bit. What was the title of my deal tonight?
How to have less headaches with tenants as a landlord.
That's it. I love the way she words things. How to have less headaches with tenants, okay? Well, first, you can write this one down, because I wrote this down in 1978, I remember writing this very sentence down.
That's where
Jack
Adam
Miller
gets
said
it from.
Huh?
That's where Adam gets it from.
What's that?
The exact date that you wrote something down and you did something.
Well, he's got a photographic memory.
Sorry, Katie.
I did that old thing. But I wrote this down when Jack Miller said it in 1978. I was sitting in Kansas City down in the plaza, and I can tell you right where I was sitting. But you solve 95% of your problems up front. 95% of your problems right up front, okay? By choosing the right tenants. We don't, right on our information sheet, instruction sheet for the application, says right on there, and on the application, we do not take first come, first serve. And I might would sit there, if I didn't have a lot of applications or whatever and find the one I want, I'd sit there a month or two before I pick one.
We don't take first time, what?
First come, first serve, don't get it.
Got it.
You know, we pick, do we discriminate?
Yeah.
You dadgum right we do. But we legally discriminate. Everybody know the difference? Okay? We discriminate on maybe credit reports, on stability of income, all those kind of things. We abide by fair housing to a T. We treat everybody the same. I don't care who you are or, you know, whatever, but we're going to abide by fair housing. And that's one of the things about Dave Tilney's class. He teaches you how to stay out of trouble with fair housing. And it's not anything underhanded or anything like that. But we try to pick the very best person that we think is going to be there the long time. I tell them, look, I want you to be here till you go to heaven. We want you to be here forever. We want you to be here a long time. And that's the kind of people I like, because turnover costs you money.
Yeah.
Every time you have turnover, it might cost you $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. You know, if you lose a month's rent, and I'm going to tell you how not to lose a month's rent here in a minute. But you check these folks out. We get an application, and it's a 2-page application, and you check them out. You make sure they're who they say they are. There's a lot of ways to check their background and their credit and that sort of thing. We use something called Rent Spree, RENTSPREE.com. And here's the way it works. You go online and you fill out a deal with Rent Spree. It does not cost you anything. And you can print out a page with that house's address on it. And it has a little barcode that somebody can hit with their phone and get into it, or they can go to a specific web address on there, and they pay $30 per person, and you have access to their credit report, everything they owe, if there's been evictions, on and on and on ad nauseum. And we have both the husband and the wife do it. So it costs them $60. Have not had one person that has complained about that. And I've had a bunch of them who didn't get the property when they did that. I don't know why they were so stupid to go ahead and fill that thing out. I mean, you know, if I'd known what they should know about themselves, I wouldn't have wasted $60, I can tell you that. But just the other day, Eddie and I had a piece of property, and I knew I was going to rent to these people before I met them. They were the first people. Boy, this lady, she was messaging me. I don't give out my phone number. I do it on Facebook Marketplace and some local Facebook pages and stuff like that, and they have to message me. And then I can get my easy chair and get on my computer and answer all of them in a short time, and I'm not sitting there talking to them, 57 people saying the same thing over and over and over again, okay? I tell you what else I do. I can do it off my phone, and if they keep asking the same kind of question, I go in my notes on my phone and I write up what the answer is, and I just go copy it and boom, hit it to them. I've probably done that 47 times today.
So you laugh, but that is a huge tip that I use. Look, if I've given, like if you've asked me, what is wholesaling? I probably did that. Where I copied and pasted an answer, one that you give over and over again.
Yeah.
So if you're, I can't tell you, you can actually do a text replacement. So like whenever I talk about like the deals that I buy, I like copy and paste that. Like something that I share again and again.
Yeah.
That is a golden, I win back so much time.
You'd have to keep saying that over and over again. Why not just copy it and paste it and send it back to them in a text message? And then I decide if I want to talk to them. Well, this one particular lady, I was going, anybody in here deer hunt? A few of you. I don't want to gross anybody out, but I was sitting in my easy chair contemplating going deer hunting the other day, and I put this property on the deal, and I had about 15 hits before I could get my camouflage clothes on. And this one lady, boy, she just kept asking questions. And I'd go get in the shooting house, and she's asking questions and asking questions. 8-point buck comes out, I kill him. Go hang him up and dress him and get to, and I've got 14 questions from her. And how do I get an application or whatever? So I had my wife hurry up and email her a rent-free deal, and I emailed her applications and the instructions. That night, I had both hers and her husband's deal back, and their credit scores are over 800 each.
Jeez,
Okay? So, I'm
No.
really excited. And so then I had, within another day, I had another 60-something people all hit me up for that property, and I said, well, that's probably taken, but if it's not, I'll let you know. That was my copy and paste thing, So, but if they hadn't been that good, I could have kept going and whatever. But the big thing is to check them out up front, and make sure they're who they are. And I'm getting into a little bit of the how-to here, but that's the big thing, is checking them out up front. And I don't want to talk to them until I already think they're the ones I want to rent to. I have a feeling about them already, okay? I don't have to see them or anything, and I'll tell you why I don't have to see them in a second. But then, I'm going back to 1978, Jack Miller, he said, you want to bark loud up front. And that's where you solve 95% of your problems. You want them to think that you're a good guy, but you want to let them know how firm you are. And you tell stories. And whenever you go through that rental agreement, I've got a set of stories that I've repeated 1,000 times. And I tell them right up front, look, if I didn't think you were going to pay me on time, you wouldn't be sitting here, okay? And I also tell them that if you're not going to pay on time, you don't want to rent from me because I'm too tough. We're just too tough. You don't want the hassle, because I will hassle you. And look, don't call me one day and tell me your grandma died in Georgia and you're going to use my rent money to go see her and she's not even going to know you're there.
Let me say something. The first time I saw Dad go through a lease, he looked at somebody dead in the eyes and said, if your mom dies and you have to choose between paying your rent and going to her funeral, I promise you she'd rather you come home to a roof over your head. But let me say one more thing. When COVID hit, out of all the rentals, there was one person that was late, right? And they were only like a week late?
Yeah. Most of them all have paid paid on time. I've only had one person that's gone after COVID that left, and I decided I'm gonna sell that house. But the reason I tell you that little story, it's an attitude you gotta have. Don't, and this is gonna sound harsh, okay, and I don't tell this story all the time, but I allude to it. You know, like secondhand story. You know, your husband has lost his job, your kids got cancer, you out of money, you go to the grocery store and you got your buggy all filled up, and you go up to the counter and you say, look, I'm not going to pay for this right now. My husband lost his job, my kids got cancer, and you start out the door with their groceries. What are they going to do?
Security guy's gonna tackle you.
They're probably going to tackle you, arrest you. They're going to do something, okay? My house is worth more than those groceries. That's a big investment. I've got payments. It's an attitude that you've got to have that, look, I need my rent. Y'all know what one of my biggest fears is right now? The CDC and bureaucrats getting between me and a contract that I have with someone. Makes me angry. When they could come in and say, look, you don't have to pay rent, okay? They got this disease, you don't have to pay rent. Well, they ain't telling Walmart that when them people push that groceries out, they don't have to pay groceries. What's more important, shelter or food? See, in the right kind of conditions, in Kansas City tonight, it's like a -1. You won't survive outside more than about 3 hours. You can go without food for about 3 weeks. Okay? Shelter is way more important. And I'm telling y'all this because I want you to develop an attitude about collecting your rent. You put your name on the line for tens of thousands of dollars. You're obligated to pay taxes. You got to have insurance on it. You know, because the loan company says you got to have it. Send your note, deed of trust, mortgage, and I expect people to pay, and I let them know up front. I expect you to pay. I've got these things. I'm providing something, and I expect something back. And I'm going to take good care of you. You take good care of me. And you go about picking the right kinds of people. And what was our topic tonight?
How to have less headaches as a landlord.
Oh yeah, how to have less headaches as a landlord. Okay.
We laugh, but that Walmart story, I can't tell you how many of my tenants I've told that story to.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a little Leon Jr. sometimes with these stories, right? Every now and then I say, like I said, my Mississippi roots come out to play, but I tell that story because it doesn't matter if it came from him. Does the point go across to your tenants, right? Honestly.
And so by doing that, by checking them out, sitting down for an hour, don't just whip out that rental agreement and get them signed. You need to go through that thing, take your time, and let them know what your expectations are, and know that right up front. And you tell them, look, if you can't live up to this, then don't rent from me. I mean, there's a good time. This is a good time to back out right now, okay? Because first of all, a lot of people are going to want the property, and when they find out they got an application, they're going to disappear. See, that's part of your weeding out process. You got this funnel, and you drop a whole bunch of them in that funnel, and it's got little filters. And what filters out at the bottom is what you want. When you tell them that you got to pay $30 to let me check you out, and you got to pay $30 to let me check you out, that gets rid of a bunch of them. There's a few of them that don't. It should, but they should save their money. But you can tell who those are right away. You see what I'm saying? And so by the time you put them through all these little filters, and you finally say they're sitting right in front of you, and you spend an hour going over a rental agreement, and then you tell them how tough you are, and don't mess with me, and you wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think you was going to pay me every month on time, then, you know, by the time you get through with all that, pretty much all of them are gonna pay you on time and take good care of the place. Now, let me give you another attitude thing, okay? Anybody here own a pretty big apartment complex? Where's the realtor? He's not here tonight that manages like 150 or 200.
No, Trent, you're under contract for one right now.
All right.
How many? 142?
123.
123. That's kind of
So
somewhat.
let's say you own that. Is it near your home? Who's going to manage it? Are you going to live there and manage it? All right. So you don't have an on-site property manager? Just one?
It'd be a property management company that's gonna hire.
Oh, you got a property management company, but do they have a resident there that's going to live there and kind of oversee things? And
I don't know, yes.
probably they do. That's typically how it would work, though, right? You'd have a property manager in there. If you was going to do it yourself, you might hire a property manager. What's the difference between that property manager in an apartment complex than a family in a single-family house? They're my property manager for that one house. And I tell them that. You see the attitude behind that? You're the property manager for this house that you're renting from me. Does that make sense? If it don't, tell me. Think about that. You want them to take some responsibility. And you pick people who have responsibilities. Our application asks, what kind of tools do you own? And what kind of skills do you have? Plumbing, electrical, lawnmower, weed eater, all those kind of things. I should have brought one of those with me, I guess, but it asks those things. And if one guy, if they're equal, credit scores, both of them look good, one of them checks he's got all those tools and got these skills, guess who's gonna get it? We used to put on there, who is your attorney? And if they put one, we didn't rent to them.
Wait, why'd you take it off?
I don't know, I forget, but somehow or another it came off.
Who's written to an attorney?
But it's all an attitude, you know. You got to expect things, let them know what you expect, and then you have some systems in place to make it work. And, you know, I was kind of hard to change. I did something. We've been doing something since 1978. We do a discounted rent. Anybody here know what discounted rent is? And it's hard to do with an apartment. But houses, nice house, nice area, responsible people, we figure out what market rent is. Pretty close. You know, it's subjective. And we knock $100 off of that. And we call that the discounted rent. And when I run an ad, it says X amount, $1,000 a month, discounted rent. So when they say, what's discounted rent? And if they don't ask, I tell them anyway. We give $100 a month in exchange for basically three things. Number one, the rent's got to be in by the last day of the month for the next month. Number two, you got to take care of any minor maintenance up to $100. Toilet stops up, don't call me. Those are my exact words. I tell everybody that. Toilet stops up, don't call me. I don't want to hear from you. Something big happens, air conditioning, roof, whatever, call me. We're going to take care of the big stuff. You take care of the little stuff. And you got to keep the yard mowed and clean. You don't do it, you don't get the $100 discount. And by the way, if you're late, not only do you not get your $100 discount, there's a $25 late fee and so much a day late fee and all those kind of things. And you got to train people. You gotta. They're more like your employee than they are your tenant. Okay, you expect certain things out of them. And so I've been doing that since 1978. And it's worked out real good. A couple times it hasn't. you know, one guy had a little drip, it only dripped every 20 seconds. Cost me $4,000 and he got kicked out. But, you know, I tell them, look, you need to make sure there's no leaks. You keep the place clean and presentable. And I want you to get along with me, and I want you to get along with the neighbors. That's what we expect. And this big 19-page rental agreement that we have here, you know, we could throw it in the trash if you would just do those 4 things. And it's a tough rental agreement. It says that right at the end when we go through it. This is not your average rental agreement. If you don't understand it, seek competent help. Is there anything?
No, it really does. It says something like, this is a legally binding agreement. If you need competent help, hire your own lawyer type of thing. I don't know. It was something like that. It says it.
It says it right in there.
Competent legal advice.
Yeah. So, you know, and by the time you get through all that, they pretty well know what your expectations are. How am I doing on time? I'll tell one more
What time is
story.
it?
10 after.
All right.
so
you
I'll
got,
hurry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you got it. Give me about 5 minutes and we got Q&A.
Okay. So another thing is, we don't, and I might have to have just a hair on with that.
Well, with you, I said 5.
Because what I'm about to tell them is, let me tell them about the appliances.
Oh, yeah.
Right in our agreement, it says that we don't furnish any appliances. If there are any in there, it's there for their use. If they quit working, we're not gonna fix them, and we'll come take them out if they're not safe. And that no rent will be deducted because of that. Okay? That's basically the gist of it. The reason we do it, my friend Dave Tilney had somebody that moved out, left a deep freeze there. New people come, they call up and say, can we use that deep freeze? Sure, you can use it, whatever. They buy a side of beef, and 2 weeks later it went out. They sued him. Okay? So that went in all of our rental agreements. And they're rental agreements, not leases. I'll tell them, look, just give me a 14-day notice and be gone. It's not gonna, we want you to be happy. We're not gonna force you to stay here. It's not a lease. And I explained the difference between a lease and a rental agreement.
What is that difference?
Well, with the lease, let's say they sign a year lease and they stay 9 months and they move out, they still technically owe you 3 more months. With the rental agreement, with us, they can move out, but they don't get I'm fixing to do it, performance bonus.
Yep.
We don't do deposits. Now, I was a little late. Dave's been doing this for years. And a couple of years ago, I had 6 vacancies at one time. I had 3 of my good tenants bought houses. We had bought 2 places, and then I had 1 tenant that I was glad was gone. So I had 6 vacancies at one time. And I quickly switched to what Dave has been doing for years. Is I went to no deposits and something called a rent lock. And the rent lock, they have to come up with 2 months, twice the months, 1 month's discounted rent to move in. The first month, they don't get that discount because they're just starting out, and then I knock $100 off of that, and the other is nothing more than an option. That's what the rent lock is, that says I can't raise the rent on them more than 10% the next year, and they have the option to rent it for another year. And they pay a non-refundable option fee called a rent lock. You know how many people I've had complain about that since I switched to it? 0. And they actually love it because I explained the rest of the story. I've had 2 or 3 of them say, that is the most awesome thing I have ever heard. I love that. And man, that is incredible. How did you figure that out? Oh, thank you, Dave. But here's how it works. So there's no deposit. It says right in our rental agreement that they understand, they initial it, that they understand that there is no deposit as alluded to in the Mississippi Code. Okay? There's no deposit. And so then we explain the rent law. But what we do is, and I take it a step further than I used to with the deposit, because here's what happens with the deposit, okay? They may or may not give you a 30-day notice. Okay, so let's say they're good folks, they keep the house nice and clean, and they expect to get their deposit back, and which, I'm gonna tell you, 99% of the time, I give a deposit back. I did, because I got good people, and they clean it up, and for the most part, very rarely did I not give a deposit back, very rarely. But we don't do deposits anymore, so what do? We add one more thing that keeps us from losing a month's rent. Because with the deposit, they give you the notice, they're good people, give you the 30-day notice, they move out, and then what do?
Look for a new
What
one.
do?
You gotta start looking, clean up and look for a new one.
You gotta go clean it up, and you start advertising it, and then what happens to your pocketbook?
Shrinks.
You lose about a month's rent.
Yeah, plus you gotta send the deposit back.
All right, I'm fixing to tell you how not to lose a month's rent. Okay? We even went back to our tenants that we had, and I still got some of those that we took deposits on, because they've been there a long time. You know, 3 years ago is when we started doing the rent lock and the performance bonus. I went back to those tenants, my old previous tenants, and I said, look, if you'll do this one thing, not only will I give you your deposit back, I'll give you a $200 bonus on top of it when you move out. Okay? But here's how the performance bonus works. I tell them, look, number one, you give us a 30-day notice. You stay at least 12 months. You stay at least 12 months. You give me a 30-day notice. You have it very clean and nice. Everything cleaned up really good. The stove, we want this house showing really, really good. And when you give me that 30-day notice, I'm going to start advertising it. And I want you to help me show it. I'm going to bring all these applications over, and I'll set up a time agreeable to you. And I might have 10 people come through at one time to see the house. You help me get it rented before you leave, and I'll pay you back at least what 1 month's rent is for a performance bonus. They love it. I have not had one person say that they didn't want to show it for us. So you don't even have to go out there. You just get the applications out there and explain that, and they pretty much understand the applications because they've gone through that process. They say, okay, here's the rent-free deal, here's your application. Everybody above 18's got to fill out one of these applications. Here's your instructions. Maximum 2 dogs, no cats, $25 a month extra for each dog. 2 dogs maximum, okay? So they explain that, they show it for you, and the odds are you're gonna have it rented by the time they move out, and you don't lose a month's rent. It's called a performance bonus.
How many turnovers did Dave have that one time?
He had 30 in 1 month, and didn't lose 1 day rent.
But you
Not
still,
one
you
day.
still lose a month of the performance bonus, right? I mean, that's.
So they give you the rent lock up front.
Oh, okay, got you.
You're giving them back their own money. plus
Basically giving them back their own money.
Got you.
But if they don't stay the whole time, they don't get anything back the whole bit. Now, let me just tell you what kind of guy that we are, okay? Here's the kind of people we are. I also tell them on the
Lease up?
appliances.
Oh.
The year before last, I put 3 new stoves in, and I tell them that. If you pay your rent on time and you take good care of the place, and your stove goes out, I told them the thing about getting sued over the deep freeze, right? I said, but look, you pay your rent on time, you take good care of this place, if that stove goes out, that dishwasher goes out, I'll put a new one in for you, I'll get it fixed. And you do that, because those tenants, see, you under-promise and over-perform.
Mm-hmm.
You under-promise, over-perform. That's so important to do what's right.
Ready to do some Q&A?
Eddie and I,
When you have a minute, you want to get into Q&A?
yeah, I'll do that. One more thing. Eddie and I just had one, that one where the 800 deal, I have never, they moved out after 10 months. And they, that place was so clean. I mean, they had these little, aerosol things all through the house. When you open the door, I mean, it smelled like you died and gone to heaven. It was just unbelievably clean. They cleaned the carpets, they've done all those things, and they'd only been there 10 months. They're supposed to stay 12 months to get a, guess what? We sent them a check for $500. That's the kind of people we are, you know? So you gotta be tough, but you got to, and look, that guy, he'd do anything for us, I guarantee you.
I can't. One time y'all had that deal that you started finding out who the seller of that home was. You said, call your nephew. Wasn't the guy's nephew?
Yeah.
The
That
guy
was another one. That was a different deal where I gave the money back ahead of time.
But he had a home he was buying from a distressed seller.
It was Adam and I, and it was a big mobile home park.
Okay, and so he comes a guy in small town, getting to know the person, finds out he has a nephew he used to rent to. He said, hold on, call him and talk to him. You tell the story. You're better at it.
Well, it was one of those deals where the guy didn't stay a whole year. He was a preacher, and the church gave him a free place to live after 10 months. The house was in better shape than it was when he moved in. So I gave him this deposit back, And about 4 or 5 years later, Adam and I are sitting in a realtor's office across the table from somebody that we were wanting maybe to own or finance this big mobile home park. And got to talking. He knew what community I was in. He said, my nephew used to live down there. And I said, oh, really? What's his name? He tells me his name, and I dialed his phone number and handed him my phone to call his nephew. Okay? So what do you think the nephew thought about me?
Top notch.
That I gave it back. You think they would have owner financed to us if we'd have wanted to? We didn't, because there was some environmental issues. But we ended up not buying it. But they would have owner financed because of something I did that was right 4 years before. Just things
It's powerful.
come back to you like that.
That's very powerful.
But anyway.
I know Mr. Leon.
It is a 3-day subject, so anyway, here we are.
Here's the thing: is I want to go ahead and take a little bit of time here for some Q&A. We've got to keep it limited because I want to protect his time. But anyone have any questions for Mr. Leon? Mitch.
Dogs and cats, animals.
I don't like cats. They spray the walls. They can mess the place up really bad. Dogs can too, but I in this day and time, so many people have dogs, and I don't charge an extra deposit except it's going to be twice what 1 month's rent is to bring it in. So if they've got 2 dogs, that's an extra $50, right? So it's an extra $100, extra $50 a month. I like to charge per month because you don't have to give any of that back. It's rent, okay? So $600 a year for 2 dogs.
What about like bulldogs and respiratory dogs? What do you do?
Insurance companies don't like them, and I don't like to put them, but if they're out in the country and it's a fenced yard, I just tell them to be careful when the insurance guy comes around.
Remind me, I'll cough next time.
What's that?
I'll cough on the recording next time when you go to say something like that. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. But, yeah, the question in the back.
Yeah, so double question. For your long-term tenants that stay in there for like 14 years and 20 years and stuff like that, are you increasing their rent yearly? And then the second, add-on question is, do you have a standard operating procedure for how you increase rent?
That is a great question. And I'm probably, a lot of my peers that's been at this a long time. In fact, one of the guys was in that room in 1978. He says you ought to raise it $5 or $10 every year.
But he also says it's just to let them know you haven't forgot about it.
Yeah, that's what he said. To let them know you haven't forgot about it. But I will tell you, the one that's there 14 years, you know how many times I've raised the rent on him? 1 time. Right now, he's getting that house for $950. The one next door is, I think, $1,250 or $1,275.
I thought it was 1,400 already.
Well, maybe it is. I don't know. That guy tries to squeeze people, but anyway.
It's $1,100, $1,200.
But see, every time I want them to stay a long time, and my rents might not be my gross rents might not be as much as the guy down the street, but my net rents tend to be more because I have less turnover.
That is critical. Also, what's your favorite pastime?
Oh yeah, I like to fish and I'm lazy. But yeah, and I'm gonna get your question, but let me just say this too. I wanna make it hard for them to find someplace better down the street cheaper. I want them to let them go look and find out they got it better from me than they do anywhere else, and you keep them longer.
Say that again.
I want to make it really hard for them to find something better, cheaper down the street. Does that make sense? Question.
On your long-term tenants, how often do you go in and repaint or do any of that?
Never.
That's what I thought.
They want to paint, they can paint.
You might even
After
supply
this
the.
one tears up, call me. You know, and let me make a, I had a thought that was real fleeting. Let me see what
You got thinking about fishing.
This one house, the guy's 14 years, I'll bet you it was 7 years that I didn't drive by that house. Okay? And look, this guy that bought the house next door, now, he's a kind of a greedy guy that, you know, I don't always see eye to eye with him, but after he bought that house, he said, you know, I bought your sliding glass door out of that house next door. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, your tenant sold me your sliding glass door. I said, what? He said, yeah, the tenant had put a new sliding glass door in, and the old one was leaning up in the back, and he said it was better than the one in my house, so I wanted to put it in the one next door. Look, I had one here, just a quick deal to tell you about the right kind of people. I rented a really nice house a couple of years ago. Adam found the deal, and we bought it, got long-term owner financing, 30 years, 3%, no balloon kind of deal. Payments are like $400 something a month. I paid a year in advance for a 15% discount at closing, and I've done that once more already, and it's coming up in April. I'm gonna try it again. Pay a year in advance for 15% discount, and that's something you probably ought to read Jimmy Napier's book, Invest in Debt, and you'll figure out what that does. But anyway, 6 months after they'd been there, she sent me a picture. She texted me a picture. Guess what? It wasn't two-car carport.
It was, it is.
They put a brand new, nice, push-the-button garage door in it.
Wow.
And she said, this is my house. I'm going to be here forever. and she and the little kid that she mentioned up front that I rented to, they're the first two that pay their rent every month. They're the first two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Questions?
Let's get this guy. Let's grab him in the back here.
Okay.
You said you don't want the CDC to come between you and your tenants. What are the current rules on that right now?
I don't know.
I can help with a few.
If people have COVID or something, then they don't have to pay rent.
So.
What the crap?
So here's my biggest recommendation. If you've got a potential eviction, find out who does your evictions, whether that's the Justice of the Peace or the city court. For that specific property, call them. They can give you the most up-to-date information, because I know not every parish is the same. And at the end of the day, it's going to depend on if your property, you need to find out, is it a government-backed, do you have government-backed financing? I believe they pushed it back to like the end of March 31st. And then for the CDC, the burden is on the tenant to produce paperwork. But understand, I've seen it come into place. Paul, that park we're buying, there's someone in there who has a CDC waiver. So understand, and that's in, what is that, Hancock or Harrison? Harrison County. So understand that those things are happening. My best recommendation is whoever is the person who would enforce the eviction. Yeah. Lots of information out there right now.
What's the Centers for Disease Control got to do with real estate?
That was my question.
Yeah.
For the CDC.
So that was your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Any last questions?
Can you explain the rent lock one more time?
Yeah, it's an option fee. That's
What's an op? Can you explain an option? Because this is the creating finance guy.
The right, but not the obligation to rent it for another year. And we have to give them that right to rent it as long as they keep all the little
Criteria.
criteria of our rental agreement.
Is that a per month fee or is
It's
that?
a one-time fee, right up front.
It's
And
in
let's
lieu of
say
deposit.
let's say the discounted rent's $1,000. Well, that's $1,100 a month, and then they get, and I put $1,100 right in the lease, and then it says they get a $100 discount for doing this, this, and this, and this. Okay? So the first month, they don't get the discount, so it's $1,100, and the rent box $900. But when they move out, if they do all the things that they said they'll do, I'll give them $1,000 back, maybe more. They stay at least 12 months, have the place real nice, show it for me, hand out the applications. I get it rented the day they leave. I pay them, it's worth giving it to them. Rather than losing a whole month's rent, I'd rather give them an extra couple $100 more than there. That's a pretty good investment. You see what I'm saying?
I think it's really common to have this belief that being a landlord means you have to be tied to your phone. If you didn't hear it, he said that he has certain systems in place. First of all, he does the copy and paste on the Facebook Marketplace. And then you also put on there that if this ad is still up, it's still available.
Yeah, they like to push that button. I'm about to give up on that. First thing they do, I mean, you know, you can be sitting in your easy chair, put the ad on, and 30 seconds later, just still waiting. I got out of my easy chair since I put this ad on. Nobody's had time to fill out an application and then check them out. You know, I don't know why they have that. Is this still available on there? So.
All right, I'm going to give you a choice. Which book you want to give away?
Oh, I don't.
You can give away both if you want to.
I'm gonna let you do it.
You see, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
All right, who here has bought a rental property within the last month? You? All right, which one do you want? This one? All right.
Can you buy and sell it?
You said 4 of them? Yeah. Hey, Steve's buying if he's not on your buyer's list. All right, Mr. Leon, for someone, how many of you guys in here, you don't have to raise your hand, but it's helpful, how many of you guys here are looking to become a landlord for the first time soon? All right, there's a handful of you guys. How many of you guys, I asked a question for the Southeast Louisiana Real Estate Investor Group. We asked a question, what was this, yesterday or the day before? How many of you guys want to leave your properties to your kids? I love seeing everyone's answers, whatever way you fall on the subject. Because Adam, his son back there, Adam, we were just talking about a park that I didn't get, but he got. He got it with his other son, Chris, who is a senator in Mississippi, and he,
That's close.
close enough.
Forgot the word.
But, so I love how Mr. Leon involves his family. One of the first times I met his wife, Miss Anna, she was, her and your granddaughter were going through the laundromat coins from, I was like, oh, y'all got a day in front of you. But anyway, so I really appreciate, I've learned, so how many of you guys have learned something tonight from Mr. Leon? Look, so many people believe that being a landlord has to, be just this dreadful thing. How many times
Can I say something about that?
Sure, go
That I
ahead.
meant to say up front.
Mm-hmm.
People, you hear people all the time, I wouldn't have a rental for nothing, It's a learned thing, you can learn it. And, a lot of people are just afraid of it that are in the business, the whole bit. I mean, they are scared of tenants, toilets, and termites. And there's something, like management's the big boogeyman or something, property management. But management is actually a currency that you can use to make your way into this business. I was talking to a young guy back in the back there about master leasing. And if I were starting again today, knowing what I know now, if I started out with no money, I would learn the property management business. I would use the system that I'm using now, but I would use master leasing to, because you don't have to own the property. You pretty much control it. You get income from it. You don't have to worry about the big expenses. There's all kinds of stuff. Adam and Brent did a interview with Dave Tilney about master leasing. It's on YouTube. I don't know how you find it. Somehow. Wholesale Hackers YouTube channel. And how would they find Dave Tilney on there?
I think if you just go to our videos and search Dave Tilney.
Yeah, it's about an hour deal. It's about master leasing. You should go listen to it.
When we drove around, I don't know, I had you speak here about 2 years ago, whatever that was, and he came in early to come look at some deals, and that was one of the things he said, Courtney, you know, if I could do something, he told me to do master leasing. That's why Dave Tilney's seminar was at the top of my list. Like I said, if he says go, you know, check things out. Tell me this, is there anything you're doing in your real estate investing right now, given the current economy, is there any adjustments you've made?
No, not really.
Are there anything that you're glad that you've done?
Yeah, just checking people out and getting the right kind of people up front. So, you know, are you gonna make a mistake every now and then? Yeah. Anybody that tells you they don't, they'll lie to you about other stuff. But, you know, if you get the right kind of people in there, you don't have to worry about it so much. You know, they're the kind of people that, there's a lot of good people out there. There really is. And you try to find those kind of people that are going to pay you. They're not expecting something for nothing. And that's the kind of people I look for.
Kind of makes you want to be his tenant, right? No, but here's the thing is, you know that his tenants are getting taken care of, right? That they're happy to be where they're at. So how can people stay in touch with you or follow you online?
Well,
We've got the Real Estate Roundup
real
group.
estate
So if you're
roundup
on
group, so.
If you're on Facebook, if you're not in the group Real Estate Roundup, his son Adam and his business partner Brent run the group. They have a live Q&A. Actually, tonight's event, I've been having to keep up with you and your pacing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So they do the live Q&A every Tuesday night, where if you have questions, you can ask. They have a ton of videos on the Wholesale Hackers YouTube channel.
There is one video that you ought to go watch. If you just Google, go to YouTube and put my name in, real estate, and find the one with Steve Trang.
Yes.
The interview I did with Steve Trang a year or so ago.
Real Estate Disruptors podcast, and you guys,
Ignore the music at the beginning.
So Steve Train does a fantastic podcast called Real Estate Disruptors. He interviewed Mr. Leon a while back. Steve, some of you guys listened to Steve. I had Steve share on a webinar for the REIA on private money. So, all right.
Yeah,
Well,
go listen to that. You'll get a lot out of it. I promise.
And it's so subtle things. So, Mr. Leon, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Everyone, please give him a big hand. All right, you guys. Few things. This Thursday, the webinar from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on how real estate agents and investors can work together in a changing economy. Let's see. Next month is March 9th here. We're talking subject 2. I'm telling you, I want to go to state 5 times. Co-wholesale means we either bring a buyer to your deal or we help you from start to finish on the deal. So either get with Paul or myself on that, and you go grab one of my cards on the table over here. Thank you guys so much for coming. Have a great night. See y'all next time.
So, anyway, such a great job.
Y'all have a safe trip back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can't get him out of Mississippi. Yeah, like that. That's where they can pull it out. No. I don't think so. Yeah, he didn't send what he was saying about it.
Look him up and ask him.
Yeah, it's always There's enough of us out. So they don't video our networking? You can't go wrong. That's why I've been like,